one.
Tom only.
And I call the August 1st, 2023 Board of Trustees to order.
Yeah, me too.
Macy?
Yes, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Mahol,
Here.
Trustee Corvalon, thank you. Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Here.
Trustee Severs,
Here.
Trustee Sterling.
Here.
Thank you. And then I'd like to note for the record that Mayor Billy and Trustee Mountain are absent this evening.
Okay, good. Then we're rolling. Let's go right to the consent agenda. It's a pretty long consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions on it? So far, it looks like there's eight items. The minutes look good to me. ProSab, we discussed already. The Riverwalk, maybe, yeah, I think we're pretty square on that one, on the resolution. Anybody before we move on to the, and take a vote? Do we need public comment on consent?
Not typically, only if you want to.
I don't want to. Okay.
Okay, your choice,
Okay,
your meeting.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
second. Macy?
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Mahol,
Yes.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
and Trustee Corvalon.
Tanya?
Tanya, can you
Can-
guys hear us online?
Britt, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear everyone.
Britt, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Tanya, are you there?
Tanya?
I mean, you've got your quorum vote. I think you could mark it as unable to vote. Technical issues, unless Tanya, are you there?
Good, thanks.
It was a little bit hard to hear her during roll call. Yeah.
Should we move on, Miranda, or hang out?
I think you can move on and then just Macy can just note for the record that she was unable to participate in this vote.
Okay,
I'm here.
Oh, you can see her. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know. I had to switch my internet, the T-Mobile not working. So, yes, on the consent agenda.
Okay. Thank you so much.
well, Tanya, I'm really glad to hear you're not the only person with T-Mobile problems.
It's actually been better than it was like a few months ago, but yeah, it hasn't been
Yeah.
good.
Tip, I got a rebate for all of July. The service was so bad.
Oh, I should call them, but okay.
Okay, so we can move on to public comment on non-agenda items. There's three Karen Blakemore letters here. Is Karen on? Does Karen want to talk? Okay. Then, okay. Does anybody have anybody online or in the audience want to speak to non-agenda items? Okay, I've got one from Saturday morning. Jesse came over early, and do you want to take the story from here?
Thanks for the lob, Tom. Yeah, so I have a very happy report. The sheriff's department did a very good job helping me out and my family out this weekend with a situation. And my 4-year-old daughter came upstairs and quickly said, or not quickly, very casually said, "Daddy, there was a man looking in my window." And she was down there changing out of her pajamas. And so I immediately stepped out on the deck and looked down, and we had some Airbnb guests next door. And I said, "Hey, did you see anybody?" And they said, "Yeah." And they saw him walking up our trail. And so I walked out there and barefoot to see if I could find him. and I couldn't. So I came back inside, put on my shoes, and started riding on my bike. And by then, Angie told me that we had captured his image on our chicken coop cam. And so I knew what he looked like. So I rode around town looking for him a little bit, and got up to the top of the highway here, and then rode back, and then hopped in my truck and started cruising around town, and didn't see him. But Angie was like, "Should I call the police?" And I said, "Yeah, definitely. So that's not normal." And so so I jumped in my truck and I cruised down to the gas station and saw the sheriff sitting there, and I waved him down and kind of pulled him over into the barbecue place and said, "Hey." And he was like, "Are you the ones who just called in?" And I was like, "Yep." And I got a picture. So I showed him a picture of the guy real quick, because I pulled it up on my Ring camera. And then he started driving around, and I was like, "Well, I'm going to drive around too." And he's like, "Okay, if you see him, don't confront him, just tell us." And so I drove around town a little bit, mostly up on this side of the road, because I figured if he's walking uphill, he had a purpose, because he went uphill. So then I drove around town and I gave up, and then I was parking and I saw the sheriff's truck in front of our house. He was talking to Angie, and then I saw down at the end of the corner at Greg and Laura's house the guy. So I drove past him, and then I called Angie twice and she didn't pick up, and then I called the sheriff because I had gotten his number, and he picked up, and I was like, he's right up there walking up the community center path to the community center. So I went up there and parked by the Glassers up there by the emergency exit, and then I didn't see him. So, but there was another sheriff that had already talked to him up here in this community center parking lot, and he was like, "Yeah, so he was, passing through town, and he was talking to the church, and the church was directing him to community center." And so his story is that he was confused, kind of lost his way, ended up at my house, was looking in the window to confirm that that's not the community center. And so the police are like, "Well, we got to take him at his word, but we're going to do a little checking on his background before we let him go." And then they found out he had a warrant for his arrest. So they arrested him and took him in. And that all happened like in the span of 40 minutes or so. And so it was super satisfying. They were really professional, really great. I wanted to give compliments to Chief Chamberlain for that outstanding behavior of his, or performance of his deputies. And yeah, I just thought it'd be a nice counterpoint to some of the other public feedback we've gotten. And yeah, so that's the long and short of it. Oh, Angie also wrote to Miranda asking for, extra emphasis on good signage in between the community center and then also the library. And the RTD is busing folks up for free right now. So, there's a lot of efforts. Obviously, we want to be humane, but also cognizant that some people have, any background across the board that we don't know about. And so just, it's good. I was able to go connect with Tom. I saw another neighbor or two along the way, and I felt like the word got out almost instantly. And it's just kind of having good neighbors that really makes us a safer place to be.
I also noticed the fire department picked up the same dispatch, and they started sending people out on foot. It was remarkable on public safety to see how fast we organized, and I don't think I'd rather do it on the weather we had Saturday morning than now, but we got to the bottom of it quickly. And I didn't want this to go by without talking about it.
Thanks, Tom.
And maybe I can chime in too. So Angie's email, I then connected Dawn and Nikki, and they're talking about signage, but of course take it very seriously as well. And Nikki's response was like, "Let me see what I can do." And so she's going to work on figuring out how to better sign that is the trail, in fact, to lead you to the community center. So that team is also taking immediate action following this incident.
We could get one, Jesse, that says "not this way."
Well, I mean, but has your house ever been mistaken for the community center before? No. Okay. All right. So, okay.
Any other public comment on non-agenda items from anybody on the board or anybody in the audience or in the room?
Only to respond to just one of Karen's many excellently made points, that The grow revenue goal that we have was not intended to mean to levy any new taxes, but rather to better capture the value that passes through town by being more organized and having better systems for capturing that value.
Amen. Thanks for making the point. Anybody else? Then we move on to information items, item 5.1. Miranda, you want to lay this one out?
Yes. So this is the Boulder County Economic Vitality Funding, and the town has actually received this funding for the last 3 years. The way this currently started is we received the funding for COVID, and at the time, we primarily used it to purchase PPE for businesses. This was back in 2020, and we actually used it to develop websites for any business that didn't have access to an online platform. We then asked for the money in 2021, put it just towards PPE, but we gave the money to the businesses and let them buy it. Last year, though, we opened it up to say, we'd like this money for PPE, to give bonuses to your staff, or just to cover your general operating costs. And we're successfully able to distribute those funds last year. Applied again under the same kind of umbrella, received much less money. So note to self, this is the last year we can try it this way. But they did give us $7,000 to distribute to businesses. And what we do is this is just an open-ended grant. It's everyone's eligible to apply if you have a business license through town. And we just split it. We take the pot and we split it however many ways based on how many businesses. And we'd like to continue to do that, recognizing it is a smaller pot of money, but it is what seemed to have worked well. And, $50 towards an energy bill is still better than nothing. It's kind of how the businesses have always felt. It's something better than nothing. And it's a no strings attached. You just tell us how you're going to use the money so we can document it for our reporting.
How many businesses have applied in the past?
It's really varied. I feel like last year we had 45.
Oh, wow.
Definitely a higher uptick when we opened it up to anyone, we saw a huge increase. I think before that it was about 20 who were purchasing PPE. There was just a lot of PPE around at the time. So when we narrowed it down that you could only use it for that, not as many people participated, but this is really kind of open-ended. So this is just more of an FYI. It's also just to ask if you have any concerns about the way in which we plan to distribute this. We want to make it simple. The businesses are very used to this at this point in time. They know the drill. They know how to turn it in. The difference is we'll make it an online fillable form. So to avoid the paper, that will be great. The reason I have a time frame though that's starting in September is we obviously need to make sure the check is in our hand before we start giving out money. We expect to receive it in August. So this timeline is subject to change, but what I aim for is we would release the application, give people about a month, and then award the money about 6 weeks later, because it does take us a bit of time on our end to do the financials. So that's why it's a longer time frame to make sure we have W-9s and everything else we need to actually start cutting those checks. So question before you tonight is, do you have any questions? Happy to hear if you have any concerns. The way in which the money is used, which is for businesses, can't be changed, but we can talk about a different distribution strategy if you're not feeling this one.
I think it worked reasonably well last year. I got no issues. Do others have any issues?
No, I have no
No.
issues. I just have one question.
Yeah.
When you said that we got less money this year and that we'd have to apply in a different way to get more money next year, what do you mean by that?
Every year the parameters change, so I can't say how they're going to allow us to use the grant next year. Historically it was never COVID related, but it seems like this is the last round that they're really trying to focus on profit loss from COVID or kind of the fallout from the pandemic. We're probably going to see an end to that. Not saying we can't do grant funding, but we may not be able to do it in the way we have to date.
How have we received the money in the past before COVID?
We didn't apply. So before COVID, I believe we used it for the Ned Bucks program.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what the name was.
Right. That was a long time
I
ago.
brought that forward a couple months, or feels like 6+ months ago. Not a very successful program, but it was used to kind of kick that off the ground.
Yeah, I remember. Okay, so next year, we might be able to get more money if we change the
we have COVID.
parameters.
Right. No, we could go at it a different way. And so once we release the downfall this year is I actually didn't even get the notice about the grant until after it was due.
Ooh,
And so I reached out to them and I was like, well, we didn't get this, and can we have an
Right.
extension to apply? And she said yes. And so that may have hurt us too a little bit, but she also did say that they had a lot of applications.
oh
So I
yeah,
just
it's a
kinda
bigger
have to trust
pot.
the word of this is how it got distributed. It's better than nothing, but hopefully I've fixed that issue that we actually hear about it. Because even Kate didn't get the notice. So I'm not sure what happened there, but I'm glad they at least let us go back and apply.
So I do have a suggestion for this, and that is,
Yeah.
and maybe through the consortium of cities might be a way to advocate for this, and that we do have a minimum wage hike potentially coming down the pipeline here for the entire county, which is going to put an inordinate strain, obviously, on smaller towns, smaller businesses that have less traffic, that aren't in Longmont or Boulder, right? So Nederland. And maybe we can apply on that basis that if you want us to, be able to do this and have our businesses survive, then the economic vitality grant might be used to help subsidize wages.
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of emphasis on job development, job training, but I think that that's a great argument to say that we need to help support these businesses as they try to work through the wage discrepancies that they're addressing. So I think there's more options. I definitely would like to use the consortium cities and just kind of figure out what was the barrier behind why we didn't receive the proper notification. This grant usually comes really fast to us and they're like, quickly apply and we'll give you the money. So I'd like to see that maybe that process changes on Boulder County's end. But regardless, really happy that we did get at least this small pot of money and we can just turn around and give it right back out.
And guess who's here tomorrow? Consortium of cities in this room. Yeah.
What's the documentation that you guys are asking for?
Just the application.
That's it.
That's
Okay.
it.
Please
And they-
submit the application and all backup documentation.
If someone reference, here's my rental documentation. It's only if they speak to something else in their narrative. A lot of people say see attached.
Gotcha.
And it's like a copy of their rent. But this has always worked for Boulder County, so this is what we're sticking with.
We'll have that discussion tomorrow, no doubt.
Yeah.
Okay. Well done. But let's get to some of my favorite podcasts. I just put a pin in them so they're at the top, and we need to do the same for Nederland when it comes to money. I must say, Dr. Cog, I love going down to those finance meetings and in 26 minutes, spending $38 million is really fun.
We'd also like to do
Yeah.
that in 26 minutes.
I'm a little freaked out right now.
Okay, do we have anything else on 5.1? Are we complete? Last call? Okay, then let's close that one out and move on to our one and only action item. Rita, I brought my HP 12C. I've been going over the numbers and let's get started.
Oh dear. All right. Well, I'll present it. Rita's here to answer your financial questions. So tonight you have the 2023 supplemental budget. On July 11th, we brought forward to you the compensation study, and in that, Rita had already prepared the supplemental budget for your initial review. But tonight is the publicly noticed official public hearing for your supplemental budget. Your supplemental budget primarily captures the increases that came out of the compensation study. We also, though, did a couple other adjustments that were needed. Specifically, took a look at the police department and made some adjustments in those line items. Taking into consideration that we're not going to budget at the full contract amount for Boulder County Sheriff's because we have this unique hybrid of overnight coverage plus extra duty plus paying for people in training. So we did kind of an estimate to the best of our ability. We also added in the equipment financing that you did approve for the streets department. That shows as an in and an out for the greater flatbed and water truck. And we identified that we didn't carry over a portion of the match funding for the sustainability coordinator. So tucked that in so we can make sure we pay Leah her entire grant amount. So tonight, really you're looking to approve this supplemental budget. If you do, we are prepared to increase staff's wages effective this current pay period, which would be huge for them, but obviously happy to answer any questions. We have fielded some questions from the community, and I just think it's important to note a couple of things. In your supplemental budget, we budgeted wages, salary, at a full year salary at the new rate of pay. We're halfway through the year, no way we're going to use that entire fund. So while we understand we said to you, if necessary, you may need to dip into reserves. We don't anticipate that being the need in 2023 because the supplemental budget creates such wiggle room with that salaries. And next year, there's an agreement, I think, under that supplemental budget that we're really going to look at revenue. We're going to take a look at that and see how we can increase revenue in non-tax ways. We also told you that we'll come to you with a pretty bare bones budget. We're going to try to roll just about everything from 2023 into 2024 in an effort to also create that space to cover that increase in staff wages. So our intention is not to ride on reserves, just recognizing though that is a cushion that the board does have to be able to make this move. And I think that there is kind of universal agreement that this, especially these wage increases, is really what's needed for this staff. And it does bring them to that minimum of their range, which it just puts them on track with where they should be paid. So happy to answer questions.
Good. Okay, so it looks just top line like grants are roughly 45% of our budget. It looks like that we did 2.74 million is 45% of our total revenue, right? Rita?
Sounds
Okay.
about right. Yeah,
Okay.
you'd have to get a calculator, so.
Yeah, 2.71,
I know.
2.741
One.
out of the total of 6.13.
Right, is about
Mhm.
45%. Going forward, is that 45% something we can count on? Is that stable? And as we come out of COVID times, can we expect that?
Well, you got to remember though, what I want to say is it's an in and an out
Mm-hmm.
all the
Oh,
time.
good point.
Right.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter, that piece, right? In
Yeah.
other words, at year end, in other words, we, what was it? We budgeted 2.7 million.
Mhm.
Okay, so when we budget, it's an in and an out. At year end as well, I better get up here. So in other words, whatever I expense at year end, and it's a lot less than 2.7 million, I have to make a journal entry so the revenue ties out. So that's always going to be an in and an out.
Okay.
So I think I wouldn't worry about that when you look
Okay.
at the budget. But yes, right now, it's probably, you're right, about 45%.
You do have a pretty heavy grant in there as transportation improvements project.
That's
That's a $1.5
Yeah.
million grant. And I think probably one of the largest town has seen. Would love more of those, but no
Mhm.
guarantee. I mean, that's not often the space. in
I'll
which
keep
we're
pumping it out in
operating
Denver. You pick it up.
We
over-
need to have the 20% match, but I mean, that's a huge piece, but that will carry over because
That's
not
right.
a lot of tips will be done this year. So you're going to see a lot of this grant funding carry into 2024 when we're set to complete the majority of our grants.
Understood. Okay. And then it looks like our net change in assets are minus 245,000. When we have a net change in assets like that, where does it come from, Rita?
Well, that's exactly, if this budget were to come true, right?
Yeah.
That would be, we would have to dig into the reserves. Exactly right. However, and I don't know, I know it's not important, but I made a couple of notes because as you all saw, the 2022 audit has just been completed.
Thank you.
And okay. And I'm happy to report just a couple of things on the general fund balance increased $84,000
Mhm.
versus a budgeted loss of 255,000.
Mhm.
So I think those are just important facts.
Oh, for
The
Pete's
community center, just because the community center is also affected by this supplemental budget, they increased their fund balance by 36,000 versus a budgeted loss of 45,000.
Right.
The sewer fund increased by 27 grand versus a budgeted loss of 128,000. And the water fund increased by 210,000 versus a loss of 20,000. So I think those are just important facts to share. I mean, I know it looks
Yeah.
scary, the $243,000. And as you know, also as of the June financials, we're doing better than projected in all the funds.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And like Miranda said, 243,000, that is including us at the highest increase for wages in 2023, which is
Understood.
not going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's just how you budget. You go with the highest. And that's how it's going to be for 24.
And how are our sales taxes holding up?
It was a little scary last month,
Mm-hmm.
but this month, now we're at 5% above what we were at last year. For the month
And we
that I
budgeted
just-
1%.
that I just received in July, but that can change. I actually reached out to Department of Revenue month thinking they maybe made a mistake because I'm going, how can it be so low?
Don't call
But
again.
remember, it's 2 months in
In
arrears.
arrears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he said April, but so this month came in really a lot higher than last year. So
That's great.
Yes, we'll take it.
Those notes that you were just rattling off, where are those categorized?
What notes?
All the things that you were just saying
Oh, the
based on,
ending
because
balance.
I know that it's in the audit.
That was the audit.
Yeah, it's in the audit, but do you have those in
It
a,
just made me a Word doc.
You just
So
made-
for
it's-
tonight.
okay, it's in Rita's
And
document.
we'll talk about that again when we do, when we go forward in the 24 budget.
I was just
will-
thinking if you could, that snapshot would be really helpful to send out to us so that we can just
It
remind
probably should go
ourselves
into
of
the
those.
record.
Yeah, it should go into the record of all those things so that we can also articulate it to the public as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's,
because it sounds like with all those things that are doing better, that we're actually not going to be.
Well,
below
I think, as I've
240,000.
mentioned before, it's important to know as well that over the past, like I said, since I've started, we've increased in fund balances every year.
Without cutting short on, we're not deferring maintenance.
That's correct. And of course, a lot of that had to do with, we were understaffed, right?
Yeah.
So we had a lot of savings in salaries, which that's changing. I mean, we're fully staffed.
Don't say anything.
But, so I'm thinking, we are gonna start, using up some of the budget, and that's how it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
But, I just wanted to say that, we've increased our fund balances over the past 3 years. It has not gone negative yet. And it hasn't in 2022 either. So we'll see what 2023 looks like. And that's again, okay, so we've increased, I don't know how many hundred thousands over the past few years. Is it going to be okay to dip into the reserves a little bit? Maybe so.
This is one of those moments
Yes,
where it feels safer than it
I
would otherwise.
agree.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I do think I'd heard Trustee Severs be like, how'd that happen? Yes, it's great that, we budgeted in the negative, but we came out in the positive, but that's really not your goal, right? You budgeted for us to use the money for all these different projects. Some of the historical limitations were not having the staff to do those projects. Have the staff, you have the leadership team, they're doing the things that they need to do. They are in many ways exhausting line items for the betterment of this community, and that's what should be happening. And so I think that's how we have to look at this, is that we should ideally be running our budgets as we set them
Right.
and not be trying to bank on having money added to the reserves.
Rita, sorry, those tax increases we passed, I suppose at the end of the year when we do the budget, you'll be able to tell us exactly how much that was able to give us, those
The
increases.
0.25,
Mm-hmm.
is that what you're talking about, the 0.25% in sales tax?
Yeah,
Yeah, we should be able to see that, yes.
okay.
Because that only hit the general fund, so I should definitely be able to let you know.
And then the marijuana tax goes to the Parks Department, but that helps offset Park Department expenses, which are in the budget. So that's also going to help us
Right.
too.
And-
So,
And I don't know if you noticed, but in the June financials, that's the first time we are showing the marijuana tax for towns. I'm keeping that separate from what we're getting from the state, which I think is helpful.
yeah, I saw that somewhere. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so the big funds, the big funds are in good shape, the five that we count on. And Miranda, I want to say, for Karen Blakemore letter number 4, the response was really good. This set my mind at ease that we're not overspending or doing something silly. And it's good to know, bottom line, have everything lined up. This is a memo I'll probably keep.
Would it be
Rita helps.
helpful? I could put in my monthly financials what our bank balance, which is the reserves, is. I could put that in there every month. I mean, if that's helpful.
For me, it would be helpful.
That's what I thought.
I watch it,
since you're- Okay.
Okay, others going around the table, do people have questions on what they're seeing, either in the top level or the detail?
Just to note that, we had already budgeted for a loss this year.
Mhm.
So that 243,000 674, right? Like that's not because of staff wage increases. 84,000 of that is because of staff wage increases.
Right.
Right. The rest of it, we already agreed to budget at a loss last year to buy things like the new grader and to do some projects that needed to be done, right? There were things that we knew needed to happen. So we budgeted for that accordingly. So I just to put it on the record that it's not $250,000 going to staff. It's actually only 84.
Right. That's important. We also made investment this year in community engagement, and the Granicus software is pretty cool for what it does. I got demos on the modules that we have and the modules we don't have. Do we have the module that tracks ADUs and compliance?
No, we don't actually have that many registered ADUs.
Okay. It seems to me that for around 15 grand or less, they do a remarkable, I sat down with the product manager this morning. It's remarkable what they can find by crawling the web and bringing things to your attention that we're unaware of for compliance.
Yeah, actually Macy uses them for short-term rentals, and when she has a question or needs them to dive into a specific property, they're able to do that for her. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, and they check the listing sites. And so if there is an ADU being advertised as a short-term rental on a listing site, I'll be notified of that, whether it be an ADU or a typical residence. But yeah, so just through more investigation, I will be able to determine if it's an ADU. And then you guys reinstated that license type. I think it was in February of this year or March. Yeah, so I work with them to get them in compliance once identified.
Great. Okay, excellent. They were very careful to say that the software is not intended to be used for emergency notification. Do we have emergency notification in place with them or somebody? How do we do it if there's a fire?
Do, and I'll let Andrew talk about it, but Andrew reached out to Everbridge, which is the emergency notification for emergency situations
great.
through Office of Emergency Management. However, Andrew found a way to do the same notifications for kind of non-emergency, but please.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Like Miranda said, Everbridge is one of the best platforms out there for emergency notifications. It's what Boulder County uses for the Office of Emergency Management, their mass notifications. We're using it for service impacts mostly. And so we have a really good billing database with really good contact information, including phone numbers and emails. And so we've uploaded that to the Everbridge website. And so we can use it for street closures, water service impacts, et cetera. For large scale emergencies, Boulder County would still be handling those emergencies and those emergency notifications. But it's a great system for us. We can even target certain specific areas and notify people within a block or two or specific streets.
Oh, that's cool.
That's excellent. They got me out of China just as the COVID curtain came down. They said, everybody out. They're a remarkable organization, and they definitely know how to get the word out when you need to. Okay, that's good. Others, any questions on what you're seeing here? Thanks for clarifying the 84K. Tanya, anything that raises an eyebrow? Okay. This is a public hearing, so let's go to public comment. Do you see anybody, Miranda?
So online is Tressa Robertson and Barbara Hart. I'm not sure if they have a comment. Also Britt Demink, if she has a comment. And then Ron Mitchell in the room.
Who wants to go first? Not all at once. I'll give it 15 seconds. Hearing none. We move on. Let's see. Then I guess we go, I'd ask for a motion.
I've got one.
Go ahead.
I second. Oh, sorry.
Wait, what is the correct motion?
Sorry, I didn't put it in there, but you're approving
I
resolution.
approve Resolution 2023-40, amending the 2023 budget and approving supplemental appropriations for the general fund and community center fund.
I second.
Macy?
Mayor Pro Tem Mahol,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Oh, yeah.
Trustee Coombs Ismail,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
and Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Wow, what are we gonna do with it? We might get out before dark.
Beers are on you guys, huh?
Well, again, we've kind of beaten this over and over again over the last few months, but well deserved. I personally, wished it had happened a lot sooner, embarrassed that it was at the level that it was at, and just thankful that we were able to do something about it. So
Thank you.
I think as Eric had put it at one point, this is our ethical obligation. So here we are.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
And
very much.
marijuana smokers, keep buying.
Okay, he is freaking me out tonight, guys. He's really freaking me out.
Far too jolly.
Okay,
Okay, our
wow, other business.
other business.
Can I just add one thing I should have put as an informational item, and I'm sorry I didn't. Metropolitan football funds, we talked to you about this in
Yes.
budget
Mhm.
year,
Yep.
21,000 and some change. We're like, how do we use these? And finally decided, we brought together a group of youth organizations, and we just said, put out a request for information
Mhm.
and just like find out how people would use the money. So we're basically saying, tell us if we were going to give you money, how much do you need and for what? And we're not asking that it stay within that 21,000. We want to know what your needs are so we can maybe bring it back to the board or other agencies and say, here are our needs. No one really has a pulse on the financial component of youth programming. So this is a way for us to do that. So we would encourage youth organizations to fill out that form, let us know how you need money so we can allocate ours appropriately, but then also advocate for getting other funding through different sources.
Excellent.
And are you hoping they're going to contact you saying, hey, or do you have a list of folks that you're already reaching out to say, hey?
We sent it through all the business listservs as well as all of the boards and commissions with the ask that you forwarded on.
Okay.
We do think we have a good idea of who the youth organizations are, so they did get it. Plus, we posted it online in our social media channels. But yes, please help us spread the word. And it's the peak to peak. Well, yes, these are Nederland funds. Gilpin County didn't get them. And so recognizing that we have an opportunity to support the peak to peak youth programming. And we can also work alongside Gilpin County's government to see if they can help fund some of the ones that we might not be able to.
Was the library included?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that, Miranda. Can we move to other business? Then we will. Miranda, I want to say thank you for stepping up to the plate for Peak to Peak Alliance. Talk to us a little bit about what you're going to be doing over there and what your new role is.
I'm supporting the Peak to Peak Housing Human Service Alliance in their chair role. Feel like there's an opportunity for myself. So some of you may know this. Before coming into government, I spent 10 years in health and human services. That was my background before transitioning. And so I do feel like I have a strong sense of how we could help support those organizations. And so I wouldn't say a huge time commitment, but an opportunity to take kind of our leadership and help to support that agency who's been struggling for a while. The meetings have really lost kind of a sense of focus, and we're just kind of all compartmentalized in how we approach this. And so in talking with a few of the different groups, really identifying ways that we can work together more on the health and human services front. And so I was asked to step into that leadership role and was happy to do so, and we'll keep carrying forward in that way.
And yeah, as a member of that one too, I got to say already, the responsiveness is picked up. It feels like it should. And I appreciate your contribution over and above your 90 that you're doing here.
Thanks.
Any other business? Wow.
I have some. You're going to adjourn, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I told, I saw that. I thought you might have other business. I was like, and then
Hell no.
I read your mind. Yeah, so I just wanted to give a quick update on bikes and bicycling stuff. So, for one thing, I guess I just want to ask the question, which is that, you all, my colleagues, voted to approve for some money to be spent for me to go to Bentonville, Arkansas, to go check out what an awesome job they've done with bike trails over there. And also to send Nikki, and the ProSab kind of matched and ponied up there. And so that was an investment that we made as far as I'm concerned. And well, the question I have for all of us is to think about what is our hope for return on investment on that. And, you know, my speculation and my social experiment, so to speak, is to try to advocate for bicycling myself as much as I can and get as much done towards bicycling as I can, because it's my inherent enthusiasm and what I love so much. So I'm trying to get things done based on things that make me happy and things that I love. So I want to give you guys a quick update on where things are at with that, because Tanya was asking me right before the meeting, and I said I'd do that in other business. And, you know, Tanya really kind of pushed back on that decision and saying, hey, if some bicycling stuff doesn't happen in a year or so, I'm going to be disappointed. And I love that pressure. And and Tanya has really been encouraging me as well to keep things moving. And I don't know if I've told you guys this, but you know, I put it in writing to provide an effort with my excavation company to build some bike trails. And you know, I gave that in a letter to Miranda and to ProSab, and I made that offer publicly known before I even joined the BOT. And so that offer is to provide $25,000 worth of excavation and earthwork services towards enhancing some trails or making some bike trails in town. And additionally, 3 years of maintenance on those trails, and additionally, the agreement to rehabilitate and revegetate the forest in the event that they're unpopular and nobody likes them and everyone wants them to go away, which I don't think will happen, but that's my offer. And so I've explored that a bit, and that was kind of what kicked off this original pump track meeting. So we were looking around with Nikki, and Sam Ovet organized a whole bunch of people, and Nikki was there. Nikki showed us a bunch of cool parcels that could be really great for bike trails. And but Nikki also wanted to show us where she thought would be an awesome spot for a pump track, and that was Chipeta Park. And so we kind of been trying to make that happen, mostly because I can't build the pump track myself. I'm not qualified. And so that was, by the time I joined the BOT, I realized that was something I could try to make happen on behalf of Nikki and ProSab. And I know that there's been a campaign for that in the past, and so I'm resurrecting that. That's not something that I can do with my own physical labor, but I could do that as a political activist. So that's why the pump track is actually a thing right now. And as far as I'm concerned, so, but trails is a different thing. And so basically, I got some quick updates on where things might be at with all this bike stuff. And for one, you know, we just approved the funding for the design in the consent agenda tonight for the pump track, and that is to be designed in Chipeta Park. And I know there has been some pushback on that, and there is also, you know, a letter in our packet demonstrating why that's our preferred choice. So I went and did a survey today, because I had offered to do that as a volunteer, or actually this past weekend. The cool app I was just telling Andrew about that's really good for mapping out utilities and things like that. So I was able to buy it from my company and do a little volunteer day at the park. So that's done. It is a rough draft, and I don't know that it's going to be acceptable to the designers, but the things are moving along on that. So that was one of the things that was on me, and one of the reasons why we got the price reduced.
Oh, that kind of, I wasn't sure what kind of survey, if it was a public engagement survey or a land survey.
Right, yeah, I got confused with that too when someone asked me, hey, are you going to do the survey? Oh, it was Miranda.
Okay.
I was like, oh, what survey was I going to do?
Okay.
And then I remembered. So, so that's happening. Tanya and I are also trying to figure out how we can do some political action with investing in some designs for trails. And we've talked to a designer who's familiar with this area. He's a famous bike trail builder, and he used to live here. His name's Tony Boone. And so we talked to ProSab about it. It wasn't well received, and Miranda and Nikki both had some very valuable feedback to us, which was to talk to them before we just kind of come out and try to make something happen in a public meeting. And that's, you know, great advice, which I've been trying to figure out how to get that meeting set up so we can do that. But I pulled it off the agenda last week because I kind of had another palm to forehead moment when I realized I hadn't yet also talked to Miranda about it. So we skipped it. And so that's the update on that, Tanya. And then the last thing is I just wanted to say that one of the reasons I've offered to build bike trails is because I love bikes and I love earthwork. And I do a lot of earthwork, and all these projects have a ton of liability, and they're really high stakes, working in traffic and life and death, you know, dangerous trenches and live utilities. And I've realized that building bike trails could be the ultimate career progression for me. And but I haven't known how to get started, so I've offered to volunteer some of my services to the town as a way of getting some rough drafts under my belt. And I just met a pro mountain biker who lives in town. Has been building bike jumps his whole life, but he's hasn't ever learned how to run equipment. So I'm excited to have a collaboration with him on that. And yeah, another advocate for biking. So that's my complete update. I hope it was entertaining, and I can adjourn now. So thank you guys for listening.
Well, just a real quick question.
Thanks, Jesse.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Tanya.
I just want to say thanks.
So the plans or whatever or meetings that you were creating to create the bike trails, are those trails identified in like the Prost? Or I know that you guys were also going through like a whole capstone project with students that were also identified. Are these are coming out of that?
Nope. There's really no specific call out for any specific bike trails in town anywhere in the Prost per se. However, bicycling, biking, and you know, bicycle use is very prolific throughout the Prost, and asking for bike infrastructure and bike terrain to be invested in our town. I would say it's that, along with swimming or, you know, recreating in the water, are the two largest categories of what's being asked for in the Prost. So basically this is an strategy effort on Tanya's part, I feel, to actually not just turn Jesse loose to go start pushing dirt around and building some sick kickers, but to actually be deliberate and to solicit some professional design services and guidance. So if I'm going to go out and cut my teeth, so to speak, on building bike trails in town for free for the town, we want to have a little bit of some guardrails, because so I think that's what this is about, is, you know, I think it's wise.
Well, I guess my curiosity is, why isn't ProSab engaging from the design services perspective?
Well, we presented to ProSab and they said, no, we're not too into it. There was only 4 people there. They said, we'll bring it back when the bigger group is here.
Yeah, I think we did need to have talked to Miranda. We didn't, it was specifically what we were asking for. We were trying to use a small amount of money that's in a pot for whatever. And so we thought we could ask for that, and it sounded like there was some, anyway, we shouldn't even talk about all this now. But I want to talk about the Prost a little bit, because I do believe like connectivity is in there, connectivity of existing trails and connecting the neighborhoods to town better. And there's a lot of areas where there could be better connectivity from our different neighborhoods into town and out again, so you don't have to use the roads. And because I mean, I'm personally not a big fan of being on the highway, even for a short period of time. So I think that's where it's really becomes because what we're talking about are 2 types of trails, and the ways to get up places are going to be easy and for all users, not just bicycles. You could push a stroller up it, you know, that's kind of what I'm thinking. So I don't think we need to talk about this in too much detail, but I appreciate the update. And I think what Jesse and I need to do is come back with this as a discussion item with ProSab after we talk to Nikki and Miranda more.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah,
Got it.
hopefully this summer.
Because what I'm also trying to connect the dots with is that whole goal session and everything that we did with ProStab. And I know updating the pros is one of those things. I believe we got, was it Miranda correct in that Kat had suggested that we write into our goals, update pros with a trails plan, like a strategic plan.
Right.
And so my guess is that then you guys would operate off of that as like, this is priority number one. Like Tanya's saying, if it's connectivity into town, this section, Big Springs, priority number one, that gets tackled first, and then everything else.
I
Kind
mean,
of
the
sense.
other thing that could be in a trails plan that could be in the PROST, right, is identifying zones
Right.
that would be appropriate for bike trails because they don't actually provide the other things that we're looking for as priorities, right? So there might be areas that don't actually provide connectivity to town, right? Like no trail through there would actually be helpful in that way. But maybe it's along a corridor that would provide connectivity to town, and we can productively encourage, like, so the way that I think that looking at this, for me at least, would be, what are ways that we can recreate in this amazing place, in this environment that encourages good stewardship of the land, which I do believe bike trails can be, right? They can be that. They can not only be fun to bike on, but actually teach people how to live in a mountain forest region, right? And how to take care of this space. So I think if we tied things together a little bit more, rather than being like, okay, like bike trails are over here, connectivity is over here, right? Hiking is over here. How do we productively tie these things together so that they are contingent upon each other in a way that doesn't drag each other down, right? But actually boosts each priority. And that's really what I'm hoping to see out of PROST, right? So like if there could be like a sort of general agreement passed in that document that sort of says these areas would be appropriate for bike trail development. Not we are going to develop bike trails here, right? But we have identified these areas that are appropriate for bike trail development, right? I would like to see something like that, because then we can start to really drill down and focus on which one. How do we do it? How does it connect to, my dream, which is the multimodal Big Springs path that gets me and my stroller down to the down to town hall without being hit by a car, right? And I mean, what happened to Magnus White on 119 on Saturday, right? Whose mother is a colleague of mine, works at the university, right? Like this is serious business that we're talking about here, right? And recreation is part of the general health of a community. It's not just fun, right? Even though it is fun. So how do we do these things right? Right? How do we make it safe? How do we make it healthy? How do we encourage good stewardship of the land? And how do we make every project tie in all of those things rather than siloing them and compartmentalizing them?
One last question, and then we can really go, but you got me interested in the topic. It kind of sounds like you're leaning towards new bike trail development.
No, that was one of the really cool takeaways from the Bentonville visit, is that there was just an amazing integration of user groups and user types. And, there were many, many bikes and people coming there to bike. And, it's world famous for its bikeability, but there's also museums, amazing parks everywhere, really cool things done with the creek. And it's all integrated throughout the city. It's amazing. And they did a lot of private property owner partnerships as well. And, but yeah, there was mixed use on all these trails. However, they're like world-class for biking also. So.
I guess my question is, your intent is not to go after existing bike trails that we have to make sure they're in good status and they're being maintained well.
Well,
we don't have any.
What I've learned with the pump track project is that that's a new asset that the town will own and manage and maintain. And in order to get that done in the public process, we have to go through the Nederland planning process. And that means going and visiting every board, getting feedback, adjusting, making, adjustments as you go. And then obviously figuring out how to fund it and getting it approved at the BOT. So it's a long process.
But I don't think we have any official bike trails in Nederland.
So
No.
we don't have any official
Right.
bike trails, but
Yeah.
we do have trails. And
Right.
so,
Right.
So this is part of the problem. We don't have designated bike trails and designated hiking trails that are maintained to the specifications and standards of those various activities. So that's what we need to start doing. Start designating things and then start maintaining them to those standards, right?
well, we could just start adding some bicycle-based enhancements to existing trails and just continue to share them
Right.
with user groups.
So we'd have to identify which trails those are and
Sure.
which ones are appropriate for that, which ones maybe aren't, and then
And
work
that,
through
and that's kind of what I was getting at, is that even if it's not official, like we all kind of know those trails that are Nederland trails, right? And it might be like as a first kind of strategic step, it's like, okay, what do we do with that and make sure that it's clearly maintained or, whatnot, and then how do we expand from there? So it's sort of like nucleus and then going out from the core.
And then
Yeah.
included in NDDA's signage.
Well, and
Yeah.
because it is all, and I'm actually doing the goal session with NDDA as well this Thursday. And so it's like, in my mind, I'm like trying to connect all the dots of how everyone is also connected. But yeah, that's a good, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think, really the next step is for me to sit down with Miranda and Nikki and basically kind of hear how she wants to approach, the strategy for, how to steer my enthusiasm, I think is really kind of what it comes down to, and how to harvest to contain it. Yeah, and get the
Yes.
ROI really, because
Mhm.
I kind of feel like I'm bumbling along with all of this and trying not to step on toes as I go, and doing that still. But
I think it'll be,
all a
I think
learning
it'll be
process.
great for
Yeah.
everyone, right? If it's like strategic and this is the first priority, this is second priority, it kind of just helps bring everyone along.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and to have that answer to people's questions, right? Because you've thought about it in advance. So like, okay, if this trail becomes like heavy bike use, but I walk my dog on this trail, be like, well, actually, we're gonna create a footpath that connects to it in the same area, but it means that you don't have to necessarily be under a bike jump with your, with your Labrador or whatever. So just making sure that we're always thinking of like every contingency all the time, I think will help us get it done rather than only thinking of one thing.
yeah. And the PROST is prioritized as PROSAT's #1 goal for the year.
Good.
So
Miranda,
Heard that
while
one
we're
before.
talking about bikes, talk
said
to
we
us
should get
about the
that.
Wingate discussion we had at Planning
Ooh.
Commission.
So we're working on getting ready to submit the subdivision application before the planning commission. Once that happens, is quasi judicial, but just what I can share is, of course, that Mary Wingate, the town had been gifted a portion of the Wingate property. We'd also been purchasing, we had a lease agreement to purchase another portion, which was set to end in 2021. However, when Mary Wingate passed away in 2020, she waived the rest of our payments and gifted us those parcels. We have to go through a long process, though, of subdividing. Currently, the way the parcel is looking to be subdivided, it's a 6-parcel subdivision, which would make it a major subdivision. However, since 2 of the parcels are coming to town, they have a conservation easement on them, we are asking for consideration to change the process and run it as a minor subdivision. The biggest component is under a major, you have drainage report and soils report and all sorts of different reports that the town is the applicant. So the town would be paying for. If you remove the 2 parcels that are coming to town, what Mary Wingate's daughter Lori is looking to do is a minor subdivision. So we are seeking a variance, and that will come before you in September, asking for approval to change the process. Then we'll finally submit our application and run it through the official subdivision hearing.
I'm confused. If they were gifted to the Nederland, why is the person proposing to make a subdivision?
They were not properly subdivided when they were gifted, so we're correcting an error in the record. So we have to go through the subdivision process to make sure we break apart town's new parcels from what the Wingates are keeping.
Oh, okay.
And then in the
um,
process, we offer, because this is a huge gift, I mean, this is 10+ acres. We
Yeah.
offered Lori Wingate to incorporate any subdivision she wanted to do on the parcel she was keeping as a thank you to her and her family for what they're doing for us. Instead of making her run her own application, we offered to do it for her under the subdivision we were already doing, which then kicked this from a minor to a major subdivision.
Okay, and so since 2 of them are meant to be conservation easements anyway, they wouldn't be part of the subdivision. That's how you can make it minor because
they-
they're not included anymore. Is
Right, they
that- I'm
wouldn't be
trying to
developed.
understand.
Yeah.
Right, and they would be like a pocket park sort of for the town of Netherland?
Yeah, that's when Mary put the conservation easement, she basically noted that it's for recreational purposes, whether it's a pocket park or some sort of bike trail, whatever, or
Okay.
trail system, it has to have a recreational component.
Well, that's exciting.
The
And
land
so
is,
then the
is
other
along
lots
the-
will get developed though? That just want to understand.
She isn't, there's no plans to develop.
Right, but she
um,
could,
but
and she should, yeah.
She wants
then-
the ability to do so, and if we're already going through a subdivision, there's no reason for her to run it separately from what the
Right,
town. is about
then
to do.
she'd have all that work done. Okay,
Right.
I think I understand.
And Jesse, the town has, or the property has really nice slope.
Where is
I can pull it up
If
really
you
quick.
as you're going along the peak to peak and heading towards Eldora, it's just opposite Old Town before the Eldora turnoff on the left side of the road.
So y'all get real close up there.
Mhm.
Macy, can you make a full screen? So I'll highlight the parcels that are coming to town. So this parcel here is coming to town. Let me scroll out so you can see where I'm at. This parcel here is coming to town, as well as this parcel that I'm highlighting here, and then the parcel before it. I can't highlight 3 at one time.
Oh,
But those
nice.
3 parcels will come together, and we've combined these 2, and then this large one is coming, is what's being gifted.
Them again.
Yes, it's
Hey,
gonna
is
zoom in, so bear with me. This large one here,
Okay,
and here I'll zoom out so everyone can see it.
okay,
Then you've got this one connected to it just north, this large parcel,
okay,
and then the little parcel right in front of that.
okay. And you said it has to be used for recreation?
Correct, that's the way Mary had indicated it when she gifted it to town.
That's great.
It's got
all of
some
them.
potential to tie for the Eric Coombs Ismail intermodal connection system. It's strategically exactly where it should be. So keep an eye on this. We'll be discussing it in September.
Yeah.
Maybe
what-
we'll get something done before you're being pushed around in the stroller.
And Miranda, just to clarify, all 3 of those lots are to be used for recreational.
Yes.
Correct, yep, all
So
3 of them have
it's
a
one
conservation.
big park. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we did keep these as 2 separate parcels. This really big one to the east is on its own, and then these 2 are combined. It just kind of kept, it's too tight. It just kept for cleaner lines.
Mhm.
So it is gonna look like town is acquiring 2 parcels. It does also clarify the gifted to the purchase situation, even though that doesn't exist. We want to make sure we're also honoring the record as it should have been when we signed the agreement in 2000. That we're gonna subdivide our parcels to reflect that agreement, and then allowing Lori to subdivide her parcel in 4. And she owns this large parcel here is what Lori Wingate will maintain subdivided.
Uh-huh. How many lots is that? Because all the other lots are tiny around it, but that's only 3 lots, you said, or?
So Lori owns, or excuse me, right now it's 4 separate lots, but the
Uh-huh.
recommendation is to do 6 lots total between all 4 of these parcels.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
I really love chatting with y'all, but I move to adjourn.
I second.
Gosh.
Let's vote.
Okay. Yes. Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahol,
Yes.
trustee Severs.
Yes.
And trustee Coombs Ismail.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 8:04 PM.
Wow.
Well done, folks.
Good job.